Hello, my front-end friends. Isn't this really cool? I think it's amazing, and this is created by Adam Argyle, and luckily he shared how we could do this over on his website. And I think it's a really fun thing, and I want to break it down and explore how we can do it, because there's a lot we can learn by seeing how to do this. But if you're looking at it going, it's really cool, but it's maybe a little bit too much. First of all, look at this smooth, the bounce that comes in there. We could use that in so many fun ways. But there's also this version of it that we're going to take a look at. We could maybe use this in more practical ways, even if we just tone it down just a little bit, and it still has that nice little bounce that comes into it as well. It's really satisfying. So as I said, he did this in a blog post recently, and this is the blog post right here, which was hover not hover, sorry not sorry. And what he called this was with this idea of focus by demotion, where we're reducing the other things instead of highlighting the thing that's being focused on. And I thought it was a fun effect, and since he broke it down for us, we're going to explore this a little bit. We're going to be doing it with a demo of our demo file of our own. I have this in VS Code right here, and with my good old demo title right here. So let's do focus by negation and see what we can do with this. And over here we have a nice blank CSS file waiting for us. So we're going to do a .fancy hover, and that's selecting this UL that's right here. And then if we come and take a look at what he did here, he had this an ampersand of media for hover, and then he's doing some interesting things in there. And this is interesting because that also means that this is only going to kick in if somebody's on a device that can hover. So we're not doing it for touch devices because it doesn't really make sense on a touch device if we can't hover on top of something. And we'll talk more about that a little bit too, because in my example, as we can see here, we do have it set up with links inside of it. And why you wouldn't probably want this to happen on touch devices. So the app media hover here is kind of an important one. So let's actually bring this entire thing in. You can see he is using nesting. So this is the parent selector. And then anytime we have the ampersand here, it's a placeholder for the fancy hover. So if you see that, it's fancy hover, and then we're selecting all the direct children. If you'd prefer to be more explicit here, we could definitely do li on both of these instead, just to select the list items themselves. And one other thing I'm going to do here is he was using OpenProps, which is just this really cool project that he's built out. I'm going to put a link to it in the description as well that you should definitely check out. I've built a few websites with it, and it's an absolute pleasure to use. It's just basically this whole set of custom properties that exist for you to build the site out with. And it's kind of cool. But I'm just going to come in here with a boring old linear for now. And now when I hover on top of things, we can see that we're getting the effect coming through, and it looks pretty good. There is a note in his article from Timania Fifth. He updated it here. Timania Fifth suggesting to use the has selector for a bit more consistency. So it's the same idea, but we can come in here. Instead of saying hover, it's to say has. Whoops, I should have left my ampersand here. Has hover, and I guess we could say has a direct child that's a list item that is being hovered on. And this is just so if you had, say, padding on your fancy list, let's actually do that so we can see the difference here. Padding of 2 rem. And let's give it a background color so we can see it a little. Background, I'll just do an HSL, 0, 50%, 100, so it's a white. And then we're going to do over, actually this should be 0 for it to be white, and then I'll do a 0.2 right there, so we should get a background color on it. So let's put that padding a bit bigger, and let's put this back, or let's leave it how it is right now. And now if I'm hovering on my list, nothing happens, but when I get on my list items, you can see the effect is kicking in. If we were doing this with the original way that was set up, where we didn't have the has selector here, we were just saying ampersand like that, and then we get rid of this, right? It was on, we just did that. Now what could happen is if you go on this, all of them go down, and then it's only when we go on one of them that the opacity comes up. So I'm guessing, I didn't actually look at the conversation between him and Timani, so I'm not 100% sure if that was the purpose of it, but it is kind of annoying that when you're on the list, the opacity is dropping, because then it just makes it hard to pick something if you can't see those items. So by coming in and saying has hover, and again we could make that more explicit with an li, and we could be more explicit saying it's a direct child list item that's being hovered on, that now it's only going to work when we hover directly on an element. So right away I think that's looking pretty good. We can get rid of our padding now and that background, but just a little bit of a safer experience. If you don't have any padding or anything like that, you wouldn't notice a difference probably, but this works better, and has pretty good support now, so we can get away with it like this. Now another thing is we do have links in here, and links would be focused on. All right, so you might be tabbing through, and you might want the same type of effect to come through just to highlight more the thing that's being tabbed onto. So for that, and this is in his blog post, we could do, let's actually copy this line. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to do a comma, and then paste it in, but we're going to say has li focus within, and then the li that is not focus within. Save, and now I think, there we go, if we tab through, it's also getting the same effect. So we're lowering the opacity on the entire list item if something within that list item has focus on it. So many cool things here in CSS we can do, like the media hover here coming in, focus within. These are all things that not enough people know about. So a lot of fun little features here that we can use and learn about. And we haven't even got to the fun effect yet. But right away, I actually quite like this type of thing where we're doing something like this. I think that looks really nice. But let's step this up. Let's improve it and make it look cooler. So here is where we come in with the effect and transforms. So a bit of a scale effect, further pushing back the unhovered items and create more punchy variant of the focused effect. So because we're adding in the motion here, he is doing a prefers reduced motion, so we'll add that in there too. So at media, if we can hover and the user hasn't changed their motion preferences, then we're going to come in because we're going to be adding in this. Transform origin's probably important. I'm going to add this after though, but we are going to add this in here, and I'm going to keep it linear for now as well. So we're going to say that we have a transition on the transform property, comma, and I'll put a linear here. We'll play with that in a little bit. And then the opacity of 0.3 seconds linear there. And then he's reducing the scale down to 0.8. So let's do the same one. And let's go and take a look here at how this works. So if I go on any of these, you can see that we're getting it. Now my 1 second is really long here for these because we don't have an animation on there. So maybe for now, I'll put that back to 0.3 just to match the opacity. But we can see there's a bit of a weird thing where the way they're growing and shrinking from, you probably don't want that. So that's why he did have the transform origin on there of left. And then the center also, he did center left, because I think if you go here, see like the distance between them doesn't end up being the same, I think. Or maybe it already is center. I'm not sure. Let's add in the center, left and center. I think the order doesn't really matter there. That might be the same. What if this was top? I'm just curious. Yeah, that's what I thought would happen. So when I go in the orange, the banana pulls away from it, but the mango stays close and the spacing doesn't look good. Whereas if this is center, which I guess is the default, it just gives you a bit more of a consistent one where they're always growing from the middle in that direction and then they're staying on the left, so they stay in the list properly there. So that's nice. But the really nice thing with this is the bouncy part of this animation, right? If we come and take a look at this version of it, let's run this code pen here. When we go on it, see how like they're snappy, but they even have like a little bit of a bounce to them. And he's doing that right now with his Ease Spring 3 custom property here, which again is part of his open props, which I could definitely use. But I'm going to jump into another cool tool here, which is easingwizard.com. And I'll include a link to this in the description as well. And it's really, really neat. Let me get my face out of the way for this one. Where you can choose a few different things. There's the basic Bezier curves, and you can come and customize this as you'd expect. And this one works the same, and there's some presets. But when you get to the spring or the bounce or the wiggle, this is where things get more interesting. And especially with the spring one, it's really cool. Like we're using the linear functions here. And if you didn't know about the linear timing functions, it's what allows a lot of these really interesting and more fun ones. And there's a few presets, so we can get like really bouncy, like something's been dropped. And what I like about it too here is like we have the mass, the stiffness, the damping. So it's really using like the correct terminology for springy things. Whereas if we're doing a bounce, it's how many bounces do you want? We can reduce or increase the number of bounces. We can do the dampening, or damping, I should say. And then the accuracy, I guess. Yeah, is it more, how is it being done? It's sort of like the fidelity, I guess, in a way. And it's just how many points you're going to end up with in here. So let's go for the spring. I'm going to do a snap, I think. Elastic? What's the lazy one? Let's go with the lazy. Let's do the heavy. Let's do one of these ones actually for now, just so we can see it, and then maybe we'll have to tone it down. But we're going to start with this one. You can see there's lots of points. It's kind of crazy. It might be worth making a custom property out of. And you'll also notice if you are using Tailwind, he does, whoever created Easing Wizard, I should see Matthias here. Martin, thank you Matthias for this awesome site. You can get it as a Tailwind or as a CSS one. So I'm going to copy the CSS version of it, and let's come here where instead of this linear, you know what, I am going to make this because it's going to make things really ugly if not. So we're going to say root of bounce is going to be this gigantic, oh my goodness, it's long. Let's scroll this way. There we go. Hit save on there. And then I can just come in on this and say that's my var bounce right there. All right, and now I think it's a little too aggressive. Oh, because we're at 0.3 seconds. Let's make it 1 second and see if that helps. There we go. Oh my god, yeah, it's a little a little bit much, but it's kind of cool still. I probably wouldn't want this on my actual site, but it's definitely very springy. It's so fun that we can do these now. The linear easing functions have just opened up like this world of realism and actual weight and feeling that we never had before. Let's go with maybe the snap instead. Or do we want more of a lazy one? Maybe the lazy. Let's try the lazy one. We'll copy that one. And then go back to here. And then I'm just going to fly all the way out here, paste this in, and let's see what this one looks like now. There you go. Much more subtle. Maybe now it's too subtle. It's possible. If I increase the mass a little bit, maybe it's more of what I'm going to want. I think that might actually be a bit better. So this probably be the easier way to save that. And then there, I think that's a little bit better. I like that a lot more. You get a little bit more of that bounciness to it. So it feels like there's, I don't know, these types of animations just make me so happy. So there we go. I think that's already looking pretty good. And I'm really happy with that. And this type of effect, again, I think is a really interesting way that we can build into these things. And it's working well there. Before we get into the crazy effect, what I'm going to do now is let's open up my DevTools. And we're going to go into responsive mode. And we're going to make sure... why do I not see my devices? Let's make this a bit bigger for a minute. There we go. So I want this to be on mobile. And so if I have like a touch device, and we're going to click on it, right? Now it's just highlighting it, and it's because you'd click on it, and that's when a hover would actually kick in. And so you'd temporarily get this little effect for like a split second before the next page loads. And to highlight that, let's just take this part off. And now if I click on it, you'll see it's happening because when something is gaining focus, because the link isn't actually going anywhere right now. I just have placeholder links in place. And maybe this is what you want depending on what you're doing. If you weren't navigating away somewhere, but you had tabs or something, I don't know what it would be. And maybe this is what you want even on mobile. But it would be a really weird thing that when nothing is selected, then the person sees the list, they click the link, and that happens as the page is loading. It'd just be this kind of weird experience. So that's why having the media hover there, I think, was a really nice touch by Adam to include that in his demo. But we can close out our DevTools now and look at how we can make this a little bit more interesting. So let's jump back here because this is really where things get complicated. So the hovered items stayed put. The further items arc more, further items fade more. So we're going to be using has, and sibling index is something that is coming to CSS. So eventually we'll know where an element is and it can do stuff with that, and it's very exciting and I'm looking forward to it. But in the meantime, we can't do that. So Adam got really, really interesting here. And I was going to break it down more, but I wanted to save part of it for this video to like learn this in real time, because I think that's a really good skill to have when you're looking at some code to try and understand it. So he has an arc of 5 degrees. So I guess we'll start with that. Locally scoped makes sense. I guess the bounce here could also be a locally scoped custom property. But we're going to say this is my arc of 5 degrees. You probably don't want more than that because it would just become a little bit much. And then we have, okay, has list item nth child 1, hover target is 1. Okay, we're going to bring all of these in. So for every one of the list items, oh, I know what this is doing. Okay, cool. So we're setting a target based on which element is being hovered on. So if I hover on the 5th element, the target of fancy hover is getting set to 5. And there is no target currently, you don't need to have one. We're just creating a custom property in that specific time. So we're not updating something else. You could probably come in with like a default target, but I don't really think that would serve a purpose. So let's just go and take a look to see if we can see that. I'm not sure if we'll be able to, but let's see if we can find that here. If I look at my UL here, no, we might be able to see it actually. Let's do this. Let's find that list here, choose hover, and let's put hover on that. How come when I have a hover there, let's go on this one and do a focus within. Okay. Oh, we don't have the focus within working though. Oh, let's just put the hover. There we go. Okay. So if we have the hover on that one and I go to my fancy hover now, am I going to see? There we go. So now we can see that the target there, it's a little bit small, but we can see that it's number 5. And then if I turn my hover off on this one, but we go on, put my hover on this one instead, and then we go back to my fancy hover, now we can see that the target for the list itself, so I'm on my fancy hover, the target is 4. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so we can change that custom property based on where we're hovering. That should work out well for us. Or work out well. I think I know where this is going, but I'm not sure how the math is going to work. So he doesn't change the transform origin. We might come back to that in a second. These are staying the same. Distance from target, var sibling index. Is that wrong? And we have no, this is a variable of sibling index. Does he have, I think we don't see it here, but I think what he's doing is setting a sibling index on each one of them. He is. Okay. So on here, so this, you'd probably want to use JavaScript for this, and you could even do, could we do this? We have ATTRs also coming, and I'm wondering if that could play into how this could work, because you could set data attributes. Anyway, we're not going to worry about it too much. Let's come on this first one and just say style is equal to sibling index of 1, and then we can just copy that. Then I can come over to here, I can middle mouse click and just drag down in VS Code, put a space, paste that in, save. I just realized we don't need all of those. And then we can just update these numbers really fast. And there we go. We got I have 10 here. His demo only used 9, but I thought I copied his list. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We have 10, so we might have to update this also then. I'll just duplicate that line and put those to 10. There we go. So we can get all of our targets. Okay. So yeah, this would be cool if we could do that without pointing at that. And we have the ABS function here. So ABS function, I'm guessing that just gives us CSS. ABS, there it is the absolute value of the argument is the same type as the input. So with ABS 20% minus 100, the absolute this is so we're just ensuring that it's yes, okay, that makes sense. I was like, wait, why do we need this? This makes sense. We're always going to be getting a positive value out of it. And the reason why we need always a positive value is because if we're on target number 5 and we're doing minus target and the target number is 7, we'd get a -2. And I think we want to make sure we keep a +2 for the distance. Cool. This is where I'm not into I never knew what all these math functions were useful for, and it's cool seeing examples where they're being used and you're like, oh, I get it now. Okay. So in here, let's come down, we're going to add these. So distance from target, right, is the ABS. And this is also, if you're going to do something like this, writing the code, it does help. Instead of just copy pasting, I was doing the parts I knew I would know and copy pasting that. And for something like this, I think it's fine to copy paste because it's just repeating the same thing over and over. But for when it's the complicated stuff that you're not sure you understand completely, writing it out definitely helps just have it sink in and make sure you know what you're doing. Var minus var target. So we're saying we're taking the sibling index, right? So if I hover on my 5th one, the sibling index is going to be number 5. And then, so every one of those other ones, it's going to go, okay, I have a number 5, and then my target, oh no, sorry. Yeah, if I'm hovering on number 5, it's going to say my sibling index is 5, and I'm hovering on 5, so minus target is 5, so the result will be 0. But if I go to this one, like the one before it, now we have a distance from target of 1, and then we'll have a distance from target 2 and a distance from target 3, so we know how far away from that is. That's really cool. Okay, so that we can do right there. Then we had the other custom property. What was the other one here? Distance multiplier. So what do we need that for? Distance multiplier is we're using our distance from target times 15%. Change 15%. So okay, this is just, we can play around with that number if we need to. So I just, because of how I work, what I would probably do is have a distance multiplier here of 15%. So people know this is sort of like, I can come in and I can play with this, and I don't know what I would name this one now. Calc, maybe? Calculation. To make it a bit more obvious. And then this would be my var distance multiplier. I sort of like having, the reason I'm doing this is I like doing custom properties, or like my, play with these. Those are the toggles you can muck around with, and then it's used for calculations, don't touch. Because if you change anything here, you break everything, right? So I like having, sometimes you're exposing custom properties that you can play around with, is sort of how I like to do it, to make it really easy. This is the one thing I change, and then I'm good. But that's just how I like to work, and a habit that I've built for myself, I guess. Gradual fade out. This is the one I'm actually really interested in. We still have to figure out exactly how all these work. But gradual, there we go, fade out. Calc of 100% minus var, oh, okay, I understand this one now. Minus var distance multiplier. So the farther, I didn't spell that right, and I need, this one has to be my multiplier calculation. So the further out we get, the bigger the number is going to be. So we're saying 100% minus a larger and larger number. So the further away from the target we are, the lower the opacity will be. And then we have the angle that will also come in. And okay, so let's do it. I was going to save that one, but we'll say angle is a calc of our var sibling index minus, whenever we have multiple quotations, I always get mixed up, but I think we're okay, minus var target. So the angle, but then how are we using the arc? Oh, scroll over and then you find the arc. So if the sibling index is 5 and the one we're hovering on is 5, we get 0, so 0 times our arc. So target, and then it would be, okay, 1 second, var that one, var that one. Do I need, I have an extra set here, don't I? There we go. Oh, but okay, he did have 2. I was copying him. So we had an extra parentheses here to make sure that we're doing it times var arc. And that's because CSS will use order of operations. So what we want to do is this is included in parentheses. So we're doing the subtraction first, then we're multiplying it by the arc right there. Because if you didn't, then it would do the multiplication first. And then so here, the opacity is good. The transform, instead of doing a scale, we're going to rotate it along the Z axis. So let's just, we can paste that in. I didn't do everything, I don't think yet, but let's see what happens. Nothing yet. The reason we have nothing yet, why is this still working is actually my question. The opacity is going to have to be changed too, no? Yeah, okay, let's do the let's see if the opacity works here. Var gradual fade out. I might have made a typo along the way here too. Let's see if this one works. Now I broke everything. Okay, so we have some math that's not mathing here in the CSS world. Save. So this should work. Oh, from target, that will help. I see something. I thought I saw something. Maybe I'm wrong. No, distance. Okay, let's just. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have no idea what's wrong, but I'm going to open up my DevTools and we're going to take a look to see when I go on this list item, if I hover on it, we should see the target is 3. Let's just go on this one for a sec. Okay, sibling index is not defined. You're going to get this sometimes where it's going to say things aren't defined that actually are, like my angle, or like here the sibling index should be. Did I miss? Let's just start by going here. Oh. Why are these? Style is equal to. So I'm looking here and I should see them. Oh man, I put them on my links. Whoops. We need them all over here. So let's fix that really fast. Nah, that should help. Did that fix any? Oh, we have some. That's so cool. Okay, it's really broken, but that was the problem. I'm glad. I thought it was going to be a bigger problem than that. So let's just take these ones off really fast. All right, so we have, that's okay. Oh, the other problem is the numbers had to 4 or 5. That was kind of, even though the numbers were wrong before, it was kind of fun how that was working. That they were all based on it not being at the right angle. So that was kind of cool. So let's go take a look now. We can close my DevTools now that things are... Ooh, look at that! That's so fun! I love it. We're rotating further away the more we are, and that means if we come in and I make this 25 for now, we get even more of like an extreme angle that everything's going out at. And the fun bounce animation on there, oh, it's so cool. Okay, now my opacity for the gradual fade out's not working. Which, to me, let's just copy this. I want to make sure all these are spelt properly. Let's just double check now. The opacity is still not going down. Okay, let's do the DevTools thing again. Because I was, as I was saying, that sometimes the things in the DevTools don't show you problems. It showed me the problem that I didn't have, because it was my distance multiplier calculation and the gradual fade out. It's saying are both not defined. Distance from target. Did I spell that one right? I must have, because I think I used that somewhere else too, right? That's okay. Distance multiplier is that one. We can see it's highlighting there. And if I highlight this entire thing, that one's there. Okay. And then the gradual fade out. Yeah, it's all spelt the same. Okay, let's just change this. It could be, if I go into, okay, let's close these. And let's just make this number like 50%. No. Okay, let's make... Oh, wait, there. Okay, so 50% is working. Nice. So let's go back to 100% minus... What if I just did 25? Oh, no. Oh, no, that's okay. Oh, it's here that times... Oh my goodness. Okay. I was doing the multiplication here inside of the var declaration there. So that's fixed. This can go back up to %. Ah, there we go. Okay, the 25 distance multiplier at 25% is making some of them like completely vanish, which we don't want. So that's probably... There we go. Oh, I thought this seems to only be doing... Ooh, that's kind of cool though. Are we using distance multiplication, distance from target angle? Oh, the angle's using the arc. I thought it was also taking this into account. Where was that arc defined? I did it all the way up here. So the arc I'd probably, just because we have this here, I'd probably put the arc with that. And then both of these actually maybe would come here. Right? Because these are the things you want someone to play with. They look at the fancy hover, they can play with that. And then we could come down here and it's sort of like, don't touch this. This is all the hands-off stuff that's going to make the effect actually do what it's doing. One other thing though, he did differently, because if we look at this, let's run the code pen here. They're also spreading out. spreading out. Where's, oh, transform origin. Let's try that. I said we were going to bring that in after. And replace this one. And I think the reason, let's see if that works. That's so cool. That's really neat. The only problem there is like coming in between them, you can get like a little bit of a stutter as we do that. And that's, I think, because we're doing it on each list item. So that might be why originally Adam, and if we tab through, we'd have to fix it for tabbing now to work too. I'm not sure why it's not working with the tabbing, because we have this here. Oh, because we're only setting the targets on hover. So we'd have to also set the targets with our keyboard navigation. That's fine. Okay, that makes sense. So the transform origin is basically saying, like, instead of transforming from right here where we are, it's transforming from like another point that's further away. So it exaggerates how big, like, so we have that arc that's there, but we also have the point is farther away. So because it exaggerates everything because we're further from the origin point. And it all comes together. It's so satisfying. I love it. But yeah, it can be with the it gets a little bit weird doing it that way. But yeah, lots of really cool things here to break down. I love, my favorite takeaway from all of this is definitely this is giving us always a positive value, which is great with the absolute there. And then just this idea of calculating the distance from something based on the sibling count that we can set here. Again, you can do that with JavaScript. And eventually in CSS, we are going to have a sibling count type thing that we'll be able to use as well. And I'm just really curious if this was following along with Adam's blog post there. If you enjoy this type of video or not, please leave a comment down in the description to let me know. And after you're done with that, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see me building things out where I don't necessarily know the solution, but instead of following a blog post, I'm trying to figure it out all on my own. I have my Can I Build It series that's a lot of fun, and that playlist is right here for your viewing pleasure. And with that, I would like to thank my enablers of awesome, Simon and Tim, as well as all my other patrons and channel members for their monthly support. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.